What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of MUT Tips. I'm your host, Sean Taylor from the Made Up Theater, and before we jump in, make sure to like the video down below, leave a comment, and as always, subscribe on YouTube to be informed of upcoming videos and live streams. Ring that bell. Now let's jump into today's topic, call it out. We are taught on day one that mistakes are gifts, right? But a lot of times we'll see these mistakes kind of swept under the rug and, we don't necessarily incorporate them into the scene as gifts. We kind of pretend they didn't happen, or we just don't even notice them. For example, a very common occurrence is there's two improvisers on stage and they're in a car. One person's driving the car and the other person is the passenger. And there's a lot of times that I notice where the driver will look at the person they're with for a long extended period of time. Whereas in reality, if you were with somebody who did that, you'd be very concerned, right? You would naturally call it out. Calling out these mistakes on stage can be very effective because the audience is noticing them, and to call them out, we're saying, hey, we notice as well, but we're not gonna make this a hindrance to the scene, we're gonna make it a part of the scene. So with this example of somebody driving in a car and not looking at the road, looking at their scene partner, we could call it out in a few ways. First, the kind of natural reaction, more default reaction is to have a negative response, Like you might say, whoa, watch out, eyes on the road, man, you're gonna hit that duck. And it's just okay, that is a gut reaction that in real life we would probably have that reaction, right? A negative reaction, you're gonna get us killed. Or you might even grab over and grab the wheel and try to veer them in the right direction. Now, that is a more negative reaction. Bear in mind, when you call it out, it doesn't have to be a negative reaction. In fact, it could be a positive reaction. You could be having this conversation and just maybe having a chill conversation about work, and then you're like, man, Dave, I gotta be honest, you haven't been looking at the road for the last 5 minutes. How do you do it? And then it's just okay, now we have called attention to it in the scene, but it could reflect a character trait in this person, right? And you're just well, yeah, actually I have 360 vision, so I can see all around me right now. Holy shit, Dave, I didn't know that. And now we've called out this mistake and incorporated it into a unique characteristic of this character. A few things to touch on with calling it out. First of all, you are calling it out as a character, not an improviser. I've seen this happen sometimes where it's almost like an improviser's giving someone a note on stage, something a teacher would do, but in the scene. And it doesn't feel like they're calling it out as a character, it's an improviser's choice. It's almost like they're pointing out a flaw in craft. And we do not want to do that on stage because we all make mistakes. So we want to do this from the point of view of a character, but also for the benefit of the scene, okay? This calling out moment, it should elicit something, a response in the other person, and not make them feel bad as an improviser on stage. And also, to fully explore the comedic potential of calling something out, there's very much a setup and a payoff mentality to it. The setup is the person calling something out. Oh my gosh, man, you're gonna hit that duck! Okay, that's the setup. That is calling out something, the fact that the driver's not watching the road. Now we need the payoff, the recipient. As a recipient, we don't want to brush it under the rug and be whoa, oh man, I'm so sorry about that. Anyway, let's continue the scene and not bring attention to that anymore. And that's okay, then it's just one and done. We want to explore this more. So maybe the driver's oh, whoa, oh, I'm sorry. It's just, your eyes, your blue eyes. I'm so jealous of them. I get trapped in them sometimes. I just got these lame brown eyes, but you, those baby blues. And throughout the scene, we should continue to explore it. The fact that this person is distracted by this person's eyes. So during the scene, they're gonna naturally give eye contact again to the person in the passenger seat and lead to another heightening of that moment. Oh my God, you're gonna hit that giraffe! Or whatever it is, right? That's how we explore this further. Repeat and establish a pattern based on this mistake that we have treated as a gift. So in conclusion, yes, mistakes are gifts if we treat them as such. If we try to just dismiss them and throw them out the window and try to avoid the audience acknowledging them, then they're just mistakes that we were trying to just scribble out of this imaginary script that's unfolding on stage. So there's so many different types of mistakes that can happen on stage. Let's see if we can try to just embrace them, A common example of a mistake is someone calling someone an incorrect name. And a lot of times it's just like, no, my name's this. Let's just forget that ever happened. But it could be an interesting story beat. An example of this is I was in a show a really long time ago where I was a character and people were doing tag outs around my character. And I was just on stage and they were doing it so fast that I accidentally called somebody someone else's name. But it turned into an interesting reveal. You know that example of like when you're having an intimate moment with somebody, but you accidentally call them your ex's name? And it was an interesting, like, big beat of the story. Whoa! So let's treat it as like a big moment rather than just a mistake that happened that we refuse to incorporate into the dance. Try it out, gang. Let's call it out, but let's call it out as a gift. And that concludes this episode of MUT Tips, everybody. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really appreciate it. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time for another episode of MUT Tips. Bye!